I want you to forget about SEO for a moment and think about non-SEO issues, because SEO isn't everything. Focus purely on the mechanics of SEO and ignore other critical issues, and you're making a huge mistake. Let me give you an example. In 2006, a business selling expensive industrial equipment came to me for help, telling me that they needed more search engine traffic. I took one look at their website and told them no, they didn't. They needed a new website. Their site was so horrible, it didn't matter how much traffic they got. They could not be successful. I wish I could show you this site, but for obvious reasons I can't. I don't think my client would be very happy to be publicly humiliated. So instead, I found an example from webpages.suck.com, a site that's been reviewing dreadful web design for almost 2 decades. Now, this example is pretty ugly, but unfortunately I couldn't find an example quite as ugly as my client's site. It was actually far worse than this. The top of the page actually contained the name of the company in those animated burning letters people used back in the late 1990s. Some of you old folks may remember that. Anyway, we rebuilt the site, and the day they launched, their business started growing. They had already had traffic coming to the site, but people were rarely buying from them because the site design, the old site design, turned them off. It was so ugly, it just didn't seem professional, and buyers simply weren't willing to do business with this company. Actually, amazingly, they had been doing some business previously, but not much. They only sold over the phone and were doing around $10,000 worth of business each month, just a handful of orders. But with a new site, they were able to push that into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. They told me that with the old site, the few people who did call asked pointed questions. What's the source of this equipment you're selling? Is it high quality? Is it safe? And so on. When we launched the new site, the CEO told me people don't ask questions anymore, they just call and place orders. Today, this company is an industry leader in its area, but I don't believe they could have done that without a decent website. So this is an extreme example. It demonstrates that focusing purely on SEO is only part of the game. Obviously, this course is about SEO, and that's what we'll focus on here, keywords and tags and links and so on. But I did at least want to make this point that there are other things you need to consider too. There's no point using SEO to bring people to the site if your site has problems that would deter them doing what you need them to do. So, a few things to consider. First, ugly won't sell, or to use a quaint Texan phrase, that dog don't hunt. It won't work. It's not fit for purpose, as they say in the UK. You must have an attractive, professional-looking website. Having said that, you don't need award-winning graphic design. I'm sure Amazon and Google have never won any graphic design contests. But you do need professional. So be honest. Look at your site and ask questions such as these. Would you buy from your site? Does it look professional, or does it look like it was built by an amateur web developer in the 1990s? If you put your site in one browser tab and a competitor's in another, then jump back and forth between them, does yours look unprofessional in comparison with your competitors? Another thing to consider is how easy it is to use your site. The fancy term these days is information architecture, IA. You may also hear the term user experience or UX, and in the past the more popular term was user interface or UI design. Essentially, all these terms mean making it easy for your visitors to find their way around the site, to use the site. Again, there's no point using SEO to bring people to your site, then turn them off by making it hard for them to do business with you. This is a very common problem. Here's another thing to consider. I've been telling my clients for more than a decade that they need to think about messaging, about what they're trying to tell new visitors who arrive at their sites, what they want the visitors to do when they arrive on these sites. All too often, websites are built by just throwing everything into a blender, rather than thinking about process and flow. When the visitor lands on the site, you want to tell them X, then you want them to do Y, and so on. You can learn a lot from sites you'll find these days that clearly focus very tightly on a single message. Sites such as these. They push the clutter out of the way, and try to convey a message within seconds of the visitor arriving. Okay, let's come back to SEO now. Because Google has a goal of trying to figure out these things for itself. It not only wants to figure out if your site is a good match for a searcher's keywords, but it also wants to figure out if it does direct the searcher to your site, if the searcher is going to find your site useful, or is the user going to turn around and come straight back to Google? And Google is getting much better at this, at analyzing sites and in effect checking them for searches from a usability and attractiveness standpoint. This is something we'll be discussing in a later lesson, but the takeaway right now is that having a professional, easy-to-use site is not only good for your visitors, but it may actually help in the search engines. However, having said all this, don't then make the mistake of thinking that you can ignore SEO. Just focus on IA, UX, UI, messaging, and nothing else. It's popular today in the online marketing field for people to make blanket statements like SEO is dead or forget linking and just focus on making your site easy to use. That's also a huge mistake, at least if you want to generate traffic from the search engines. SEO techniques are still important and still do work, but you just have to put them into the right context.